Sorry, let me start this whole thing over.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay.
Kelly is hissing at her vampire show
I was
for
gonna.
some reason.
Which show?
Xander, you can put that right in. I don't.
I want to see that in person. That like
No,
a
you
vampire
don't. It's
comes
awful.
on and then she's just.
Kelly's
Can
no.
you
She's
not?
like. I thought she was like. She was making that pss, pss, pss noise like you do at cats. No, she's hiss laughing at Vampire Diaries over here.
Oh, that show was terrible.
Kelly's fucking sitting over. She's just oblivious to the world. And just. Oh my god. I love you, but oh my gosh, you're a dork. Okay. Oh my god. All right, let's turn it around. The first time she did it, I was like, she won't do it again. And then she literally did it again.
Oh my
brother.
god. Oh, I'm crying.
Okay, let's do this show. This is the I Read Comic Books podcast. I am your host, Mike Rappin, and with me this week, two fantastic human beings, Renee Rodriguez
¿Qué pasó?
and Kate Lamphere.
Hi.
Thank you both for joining me this week. I'm very excited to talk about comics with you both. But before we get into it, I've got a quick plug to make for our own I Read Comic Book stuff. Maybe you know, maybe you don't. But every other week, the I Read Comic Books Discord does a book club where we sit down and we just talk about comics. So if you are interested in just hanging out with me and some of the other folks on the show, jump on the Discord, jump into the book club, see what we're reading next. We're going to be talking about Abbott by Saladin Ahmed, Sammy Cavella, and Jason Wordie. I think we're going to be doing that in 2 weeks, so that will be on October 17th at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard. So if you want to join us, make sure you get on the Discord, come and hang out with us. And then I think later this month, we're actually going to be doing like a big Discord hangout where we might play Among Us and some other things. So this is a big plug for the Discord, but mostly the Discord book club because it's been so much fun, and I'm really bummed that I missed it this past weekend. So, yeah, let's do that, join it, and hang out. But anyways, let's get into the show. Let's talk about the thing that I'm legally mandated to ask every single week, which is how have you been and how have comic books been? Let's start with you, Kate.
Yeah, I've been great. Just in my house, playing video games and knitting as usual. Nothing has changed. I've been reading a lot of comics on Hoopla, and my library opened back up to the point where I can go and pick up physical books now, but I'm kind of limited because our interlibrary loan system in Michigan has not opened back up. So every once in a while I'll find something that's like, I know that like Michigan University of Michigan has this book, but I can't order it. It's fine. I'm not mad.
That's a bummer.
I get it. So recently I read Ghosted in LA issues 5 through 10 by Sina Grace. In this, a girl named Daphne moves to Los Angeles for college for her boyfriend. She follows a guy and then she immediately gets dumped. Shocker. So she's wandering around LA going, what am I going to do? Why am I here? I hate it here. And then she finds this like B&B type mansion that has this nice pool and nobody seems to be there. So she sneaks through the gate and she goes for a swim. And then all of these ghosts show up. And of course there is the scenes of shock that are great and kind of funny. And then you find out that all of these ghosts have some kind of like little superpower, something extra that they can do that the other ghosts can't do. And most of them can't leave the mansion. So they're all stuck there. So all of these ghosts have this unfinished business. And now you've got this human that can go out into the rest of the world and interact with other humans. And so she kind of gets roped into doing these favors for all of the different ghosts. Of course, everything is not as it seems. So the end of the book is a little bit darker than the beginning of the book. This is issues 1 through 10 are on Hoopla individually. I believe that is volumes 1 and 2. But I don't think that volume 2 is actually posted as a volume. So you're going to eat up like 6 borrows on Hoopla to read this whole thing. But I really enjoyed it. It's very cute. I really enjoyed the art. It's really colorful considering that everybody, like most of the characters are dead. So normally with that statement, I would think a lot of dark colors. And that it's really not dark. It's very, everyone's blue. So
Right.
I also read, or I should say I also reread The Old Guard, Opening Fire, Volume 1, which is on Hoopla. And the reason that I'm rereading this so soon after I read it the first time a few months ago is because Volume 2 just got posted to Hoopla.
Yeah.
So I am refreshing my memory as to the comic, considering that I have more recently seen the movie adaptation. So I wanted to be ready for just what's in the comic, even though the movie adaptation was extremely close. And if you haven't heard of this book somehow, I recently talked about it. So it's really great. I mean, the general premise is that there's a bunch of warriors that mostly can't die, just trying to kind of get by in modern society where everybody is tracked, not be found, essentially. So it's very unexpected. I mean, just from that synopsis, I would think that it's not something that I would like. Like, it seems like, it is a very action-heavy book, which I'm generally not into, but it's great. If you haven't checked it out, I highly recommend it.
Yeah, the art, I think, is a little bit, can be off-putting to some people, but honestly, I think that you should just read the book because it's fucking great.
Yeah,
the movie that came out on Netflix, which, I mean, funny enough, that's what we're going to be talking about in a bit, is one thing, but man, the comic itself is a whole other thing. I really love that book.
Yeah, I agree completely. I had a hard time with the art. I almost didn't. I feel like I picked this book up once or twice and then put it back down because I didn't like the art. But man, once you get in it, you're in it.
Exactly. I need to do a reread as well to read Volume 2 because I've been buying the single issues. I just haven't actually picked up or actually haven't sat down to read Volume 2. So it's exciting. What about you, Renee? How have comic books been?
Let me ruminate on that a minute. No, I'm I'm good. I've been doing well. Comics are always good. I haven't actually read a whole lot. I've been really busy with work, but I did get to sit down and read some chapters of some manga, some monthly manga that came out last week and also this morning, as you saw what I tweeted. So I read Blue Exorcist chapter 125, which is a story and art by Kazuo Kato, and the attack on the Illuminati base continues, and there's also the fight between the brothers that's been going on, which is a lot of fun. Blue Exorcist is a manga that's just about if there was a secret order within the church that fights demons, but also everyone kind of knows about it, but also doesn't. It's weird, but it's also really fun. I also read this series that I've been reading for a long time that was on hiatus for actually a couple of years before it got switched to a monthly book, and that's World Trigger. And I read the newest chapter 202, and it's story and art by Daisuke Ashihara. And right now they're sort of, I can't even begin to explain this book without spending 10 minutes on it.
You don't have to.
Basically, it's like Pacific Rim, but instead of using giant robots to fight the monsters, they use digital clones of themselves to fight them, and the digital clones have powers.
Okay.
But also,
cool,
some of the aliens are also human-looking people that also use those digital clones, and theirs are different from Earth. Earth's kind of look like Earth weapons and whatnot, and the aliens have horns and things like that. It's a very interesting story, and I highly recommend it. It's really, really fun. And it's kind of been doing a really slow burn, but I'm really glad that it's still around. I was devastated when it went on hiatus. But I'm glad that it's back, and I really, really recommend this series. And the last thing I read was the newest chapter of Spy Family, which is a series that I love I love this series so much. I can't believe I reread it a week or two ago, and I can't believe we're under 50 chapters right now because it's so good. I love it. Story and art by Tatsuya Endo, and the latest arc. They've been doing a weird underground tennis match thing. It makes sense in the story. It makes sense. It doesn't make sense that I'm just talking about it. But one of my favorite things that happened with it was during the tennis arc, the U.S. Open and the French Open have happened. So there's just a lot of tennis, a lot of really just comical things. I love Spy Family. I can't reiterate this enough. Everybody should read it. Ugh.
All right. I mean, that's one I think I reread the first 3 chapters of that for some reason.
That was for
And
our episode with Brian, right?
yeah, that was for episode with Brian, and I was like, yeah, you know what, this book is actually pretty fun. I think I just need to sit down and just binge everything that's come out, because it is a really fun book.
Yeah, you can do it in an afternoon. It's great. It's an excellent read.
Exactly.
Especially if it's raining out, light yourself a candle, grab a cup of tea or coffee, and just enjoy some Spy Family.
Yeah.
Have some tea and a nice little slice of family life, espionage, and assassination. It's pretty good.
It's a perfect pitch for it. For me, let's see. I've been all right, very busy at work, which means that I have like no drive to sit down and read, with the exception of One Piece. But I did manage to sit down. All the X of Swords stuff has started to drop down upon us from the great skies above. All praise be to Lord Apocalypse, or whatever his new name is, which I think is so I read the X of Swords creation issue, but the book I want to talk about is X Factor number 4. I was talking about this on the Discord. Had some, I don't know, I have some weird feelings about it, but ultimately, like, I really don't know if I have much more to say about this other than, like, we have a beginning of a story here, folks. Like, this is definitely the opening chapters. We're establishing things. It feels like every tournament manga I've ever seen, which isn't a bad thing. Everybody's involved. Everybody's going to get a sword. Well, or like a dozen people are getting swords. I don't remember. Everybody who is anybody is, it feels like they're pulling all the teams in, and they're all going to have their specific parts to play. I think this might actually be a pretty darn good event. I'm feeling hyped about it. I'm feeling excited about it because it's stupid, but in a good way. Yeah, I don't have much else to say. I just am excited for some X-Men to find some swords. So X Factor number 4 is just trucking us along. I have to buy a Wolverine book this next week, even though I'm not buying that series. Oh well. Yeah, it is what it is. I genuinely think I can't really assess it beyond that until we get a few more chapters of it. Because like I said, it's a manga at this point. It just happens to be crossing over between 6 different books. Or 8 different books or something. So we'll see how it goes. But the other thing I read was Immortal Hulk number 36 and 37. If you're not reading this book, you really, really should be. I think we've talked about it plenty of times. I like the direction that Ewing is going with the leader as a character. Like, my only experience with the leader as a villain for the Hulk was from way back during World War Hulk, where the leader shows up in like a side book. He's not even like a primary villain in the story. He just shows up in a side book. And I remember thinking, like, what an interesting character, or what an interesting idea to take like this gamma radiation thing and spin it out its head. And instead of creating these brutes like Abomination and the Hulk and, you know, some other characters, instead you create this super smart character, like a Brainiac style character. And I think Ewing taking that idea of gamma radiation, making someone extremely smart, and then twisting it on its head like he has been with the rest of the Hulk mythos, with the green room and the green doors, and adding the leader into the mix of things, really starts to add another layer of complexity to the story that I'm enjoying quite a bit. So if you like I said, if you haven't read Immortal Hulk, like, get on it. I think it's one of the best books that Marvel's publishing right now. And it's completely independent. They catch you up to speed on all the Hulk stuff you need to know, and then you go from there and you just let Ewing take the wheel, and it's fantastic. Joe Bennett's art is still spectacular. I do miss his horror transformations that he's been able to do. We haven't gotten those in the last 2 issues, but you know what? I'm fine. This book is amazing. And the last thing I want to talk about real quick is my One Piece update. I feel like we need to have a theme song for this. So Xander, if you could just drop in a clip of the One Piece theme song here, that'd be great. I'm on chapter 927. If you're not caught up, minor spoilers, the team is on Wano. And I'm in the middle of Luffy and the gang playing samurai and fighting folks. And there was a big fight with a dragon man, and holy smokes, guys. I don't know how this book keeps going, and yet it keeps going. I know, Renee, I'm not even there yet. I'm not even caught up, but I'm getting there. And at this rate, I think I'll be definitely caught up. I hear that One Piece is taking a little bit of a break because Oda is sick, which is unfortunate. But I'm excited to get caught up nonetheless. So that's my update for the week. Let's let's jump into comic books we're excited about this upcoming week. Comic books are dropping on October 8th, 2020. What are you both excited for this week? I am going to jump back to you, Renee.
Sorry, I was laughing at Dragon Man because I know you know his name, but
I do. I'm trying not to spoil it for the one other person that I know who's catching up. So
oh, it's just fantastic because it's like you're not wrong, but I know the context and it hasn't been explained really.
Yeah, and I don't think it ever will be because I don't think that there's actually an answer other than I wanted there to be a Dragon Man in this book.
Oh my god. Oh, manga's beautiful. Anyway, I'm excited for it's a new series. It's called Our Blood Oath. Chapter 4 is dropping this week. And story and art by Kazuka Kazu. It's a new Shonen Jump series. Like I said, it's only got 4 chapters out, and it's about vampire brothers fighting monsters. Although technically only one of the brothers is a vampire and the other one is his human sacrifice. Yeah, it's not they explain it in the series. It's not actually as dark as it sounds, but at the same time, like it is. But it's pretty interesting, and it's a series that like when I read the first chapter, I was like, you know what, I definitely want to know more, which hasn't been happening a lot lately with the new series that have been coming out. I'm also just really glad that it's not another gag manga because they're all up in there. There's so many.
I like a good one. Ghost Rider got canceled, and nothing is sacred. So,
man, I got through the first chapter of that, and I could never get back to it.
Yeah, see, I think you are a representation of the majority of manga readers that are outside of our Discord book club, or outside of the Discord, because the Discord, we were like, on Sundays, we were like, yo, what's up with TPG? And now it's Kaiju number 8. That's our new go-to.
That one is good too.
That one's pretty solid.
Kaiju number
8. But okay, our Blood Oath chapter 4.
Chapter 4. Yeah, I like it. I like it. I have high hopes.
Very cool. Well, Kate, what about you? What are you excited for this upcoming week?
So I've talked about a series called Castle in the Stars by Alex Alice before.
Yes.
Volume 4, A Frenchman on Mars, is coming out. This is a Franco-Belgian oversized series. All of the books have like a pretty low page count, but I mean, it takes the same amount of time to read a volume because the pages are larger, I feel like. And the art is watercolor. It's absolutely beautiful. I feel like this series kind of belongs in a different genre. I mean, I read a lot of Western comics, so maybe that's it, that I just don't read enough Franco-Belgian comics to really be used to that kind of, I don't know, otherworldly quality to the artwork.
There's like a level of whimsy that exists in those books that you don't see in Western books.
Yeah, I agree. The general premise of this is that there's a chemical or a gas called aether that means that ships can go into space. The whole book is about aether and the quest for aether and the use of it, and it centers around one boy whose dad, I think he's disappeared in the first book. So anyway, we're on to volume 4. So of course they've gone to space a little bit, and they are French, and I assume that they go to Mars. I did read volumes 1 and 2 a while ago. I think I actually have checked them both out since then and reread them. And I finally got volume 3 out from the library and prep for volume 4. So yeah, I am just in this. I'm so excited. I also wanted to bring up the Dragon Prince Volume 1 Through the Moon. This is the same Dragon Prince that is the TV show on Netflix. This book is by Peter Wortman and Xanthi Buma. The Netflix show is about, basically, if you're into Dungeons and Dragons, the elven race of the Drow think that the humans stole or killed their dragon god, which makes it sound pretty wild. But it is an animated kids show. So,
okay.
All of the fighting in D&D is really not there, or it's very kid friendly. This is a very diverse show with some well-known voice actors in it. It's really wonderful. If you're looking for something kind of like, I don't know, Avatar in tone, this is something that I would highly recommend. The book supposedly takes place between seasons 3 and 4. There are 3 seasons out on Netflix already. And I love it when a show uses the comics medium to expand their universe. So I'll be checking this out. I do think that there is a very similarly titled book that is a prose version of this same story. So if for some reason you would like a less visual medium, I think it's the same story. So also, if you're looking it up, you might find that book as well.
Gotcha.
You said it was like
Very
D&D. Do they roll for initiative?
No.
Maybe.
Maybe the creators did on the back end.
Yeah, maybe. Well, cool. For me this week, I am excited for Far Sector number 8. This is by N.K. Jemisin with art by Jamal Campbell. I don't know how to speak to probably one of the most compelling and beautifully drawn Capes books that's out there. I think I've said this before. I never thought that I'd really be a consistent Green Lantern reader. Here I am reading a 12-issue limited series about the Green Lantern, or a Green Lantern at least. The issue's synopsis seems to imply that we're going to see even more unraveling of the city enduring. If you're following along, that makes sense. If you're not, let me just explain, I guess, the premise of this book. Joe Mullen is a member of the Green Lantern Corps. She's sent to the far end of the galaxy to act as the quote galactic police for the area, and a city, aka the city of Enduring, that hasn't seen a murder in 100 years has one occur right after Joe arrives, and the intricacies, prejudices, and bureaucracy of the city unfold right in front of Joe's eyes as she begins to investigate this murder. As tensions rise, so do emotions, even if the population has their emotions biologically suppressed. And Joe does not have her emotions biologically suppressed, and as a human, she's got all sorts of emotions. Man, that's like a really weird way to describe that, because I feel like that has like a weird connotation just because like she's a woman, but that's definitely not the case. She is a human, therefore she emotes. And these people all have their emotions suppressed because when they don't, they become very violent and become very like over emotional, which is why this was put in place, like I guess thousands of years ago. Again, you should read the book. It is, N.K. Jemisin spends a lot of time very subtly crafting a lot of lore, and so by the time you get to issue 8, you have all this information in your head, and it is fucking fantastic. Far Sector, this is probably one of the coolest books that I've read from the book Big Two in a long time, and I love every single page of it. Like as I got issue after issue after issue into the book, I loved it more and more. So I can't help but thank Paul for recommending this book. But yeah, number 8's coming out. Can't wait, and I really want to see the end of this series, and then I also want to see another 12-issue series from N.K. Jemisin and Jamal Campbell, because these books, they're like some of the most beautiful books you can get in comics right now, from the Big Two at least. But yeah, that's me.
This is the same M.K. Jemisin that has a lot of like fantasy prose out, right?
Yes. Yeah, very prolific prose author. But yeah, so we are going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we are going to be talking about comic books that would make terrible movies. That's the premise. And then we're going to see where it goes from there. So we'll be back in just a minute. For our show this week, we are talking about comics that would make terrible movies. Now, that's an incredibly subjective thing to kind of bring into a discussion. So in order to make it a little less subjective, Renee, Kate, and I have come up with a list of criteria for creation. This is a 5-question checklist that if you check most, if not all of these check boxes, we think that this comic could probably be made into an adaptation. Now, that doesn't ensure that the adaptation is going to be good by any means, because great source material can create awful movies. I'm gonna just shout out to the Death Note movie on Netflix. It's a piece of shit. Why did that even get made? How did that get made? I'd love to listen to that episode of How Did This Get Made, which is a podcast from Comedy Bang Bang that I wish we were sponsored by. So the 5 questions that Renee, Kate, and myself have come up with are: 1, is there a niche want for it right now? 2, does the comics message work in today's film or streaming world? 3, can the story be compressed without degrading the story? 4, is there enough story to make a full-length 90-minute long or more movie? And 5, is there already something similar to this out there? And we'll kind of go into each of those questions as we get to them, as we're talking about some of the options that we came up with. But those are kind of the high-level things that we're looking for with all of these stories to try to make them work. Now, you could argue, Mike, but those are all subjective things too. Well, ultimately, this is a podcast about our fucking thoughts. So you know what? It's okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to. I'm not coming at you.
So
I feel like
aggressive.
I'm just hungry. I'm sorry. So let's get into this. Renee, Kate, I know that we kind of came up with a list of movies ourselves. So what's one of the movies? I'm going to start with you, Kate. What's one of the movie ideas or comic ideas that you had that could be made into a movie, and why would it be bad? Why doesn't it meet this criteria?
So first I wanted to say that I think that we're talking about direct adaptations, like A turns into B, as opposed to any kind of reinterpretation. So like The Old Guard or I Kill Giants or Scott Pilgrims would all be good examples of direct adaptations.
Right. And adaptations that don't meet this criteria would be basically any of the Marvel movies or DC movies at this point that have come out. Not the animated films, but the live action films that, they pick and choose from different storylines, but they aren't, say, 1-to-1 or 1-ish to 1 from a comic book to a movie.
Right.
So thank you for that. Yeah.
Yeah. So the first thing that popped into my head for this was Pumpkinheads by Rainbow Rowell. And I mean, it's a cute story, but it's definitely not complex enough for a full 90-minute movie. There's like one or two little subplots, and for the most part, it's the characters wandering around like a fall festival fairgrounds, as it were. Like, it could be a cute little like web short or something. But man, if I went into a theater, figuratively, for this movie, it would take a lot of reinterpretation to push this out to 90 minutes.
Right. I mean, I think this was one of our Goodreads books a while back.
Yeah.
But the story itself is pretty simple. So like, if we're looking through our checklist for this, is there a niche want for this? I mean, it's kind of a slice of life book. I don't know if there's a big want for kind of chilled out slice of life books, right?
Yeah, and then it's also very seasonal. Like, I would reread this right now in October and enjoy it. But reading it, I think originally I read it in like June or something. It's really not a June book. Like, you would have definitely a very specific period of time to release a movie based on this comic. And I mean, you'd miss a window. I mean, the window's very short.
Okay.
It's just really like, it's not a June book.
It's not. It's very
that's really just slander right now.
Well, okay, so is there a niche? We could say kind of, right? If it's a fall kind of slice of lifey book, maybe it's because there's a romantic subplot. I haven't read this book, so Kate, maybe help me out here.
Yeah, there's a romantic subplot, but it's not bulked up at all. It's just
okay.
There.
So we're gonna say niche want kind of. Does the comics message work in today's film or streaming world? I mean, it seems like you're saying this might be like a 78-minute film with credits. I mean,
maybe
does
50,
that work?
Maybe 50 minutes.
Okay. But so, I mean, ultimately, though, I mean, no, then it probably, I guess the message of the story, would you say that the message works, not necessarily the length?
Again, like only if it is a cute short for people to watch and go, oh, that was cute, and then move on with their day.
Okay, so I'm going to say no then.
Yeah.
And can the story be compressed without degrading? I mean, I think the problem is that if we compress it, it won't be a movie anymore. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. And definitely not enough story. So ultimately, we're hitting this out of the park because we've already said no to almost all of these questions. The question of, is there already something similar to this out there, this type of storytelling? I probably no,
maybe
which is
like
a good thing, but also bad because it's too simple, right?
Yeah, I mean, the first things I think of are like Halloween Town or Hocus Pocus, but those are much more complex stories with a supernatural element, and those...
Right, they actually have like a 3-act structure.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
not a 90-minute movie, basically.
Gotcha. Well, then I guess so we've gone through this. It kind of makes sense as to how we're categorizing this. I think all the questions we asked are pretty big questions to kind of interpret, but we can go through them. So, I mean, Pumpkinheads, we're going to say no. Gotcha. I'm on board. Renee, pick what's one of the picks that you had that you think wouldn't work?
I'm going to go with We Three.
Okay. For those of us at home who haven't read We Three, could you give us like a high-level synopsis?
Well, it's about a trio of prototype animal weapons that were made by the government, and so it's like a dog, a cat, and a rabbit. They've basically been put into these miniature like mechs, and they're meant to be weapons for some weird reason. I don't remember why.
Mm-hmm.
They're also able to speak, but not well, and they are I can't remember if they escape or if they're allowed to escape is the thing, and they're basically being hunted down. And it's a really sad thing. I blocked out most of this because it's incredibly sad.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you're basically animal robot weapons that are going around just living their lives while being hunted down by humanity, and it's super sad. But I think that a lot of people wouldn't get past the idea that it's animals in robots together wandering around. Like, I think that it would be a beautiful adaptation if it was done right, but I think a lot of people wouldn't be able to get past the sort of absurdity of it. Mm-hmm. And then if they did get to the very end, like, I just don't think it would have I just don't think I think it would get a little bit of backlash, or like people would just be like, what just happened?
I mean, yeah, and I think our big thing is focusing on this being a feature-length film, right?
Yeah, also it's a 1-volume story. I don't think that there's enough there. I think you could make a short film of it, but if like a 90-minute film, I just don't think that it could happen. Yeah. And I also think it'd be just really hard to pitch to people. Most of the time when I've ever talked about this comic to people, it's one of those things where you kind of have to keep either like, you know, aggressively pushing this book on someone in a nice way, which is sort of impossible.
Well, it's interesting because that book, you know, has such a downer ending. Like, no spoilers, really. I mean, I think everybody should read it. It's pretty rough, but it's also really good. And I don't think that, you know, we get a lot of movies with truly downer endings, and when we do, they're very rare, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, going through the checklist again, you know, is there a niche want for this? Probably not. Do we need more depressing shit right now? Probably not.
No.
So that's a big no. You know, does the comic message work in today's film or streaming world? Again, I don't think so. Can the story be compressed without degrading it? I mean, if we compressed it, it would be
gone.
It'd be gone. There'd be no story.
It's a very short thing.
So I think just like Pumpkinheads, you know, like in the writer's room, people would be punching up this script nonstop on top of like what other layers of complexity can we add to the story. There'd probably be more animals and more fighting and more action than needs to be in the story, right?
They turn it into one of the Planet of the Apes movie. You know, they get the other animals and they start building more robot animal weapons and rise up and create their own society. And
are you saying that there'd be like a We Three-verse where, you know, we're going to see rise of the planet of the mechanized animals or something?
I was basically saying they were going to make Gorilla City, and that's how they introduced Gorilla Grodd into the Flash movie universe.
Oh, okay. I like this. So this is a prelude to the actual new Justice League universe. So okay.
Yeah, if we're going to destroy a comic to make a movie that will sell mediocre, you know, sales, like, let's just go for it.
Sure. Okay. So the story can't be compressed because there's not enough story to compress in the first place. Okay. And again, is there enough story to make a full-length film? Sounds like there's not. Not 90 minutes, I think, would be a huge stretch for this book. And then I guess the last one is, there already something similar to this out there that people would want to watch, or maybe that's a good thing that it's unique. I think it kind of depends on the story. I would say there's definitely not something like this out there right now, but again, it's very sad and gruesome. So I don't know, maybe HBO would pick this up as a limited TV series, but probably not a movie, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so
I guess Westworld, that's got robots.
Yeah, I mean, technically. I mean, have you seen Westworld season 3? Because it's far beyond just robots, I think. Now.
I didn't get past the first episode.
Okay. Well, Xander to completely diverge here, Xander told me, he's like, Mike, you gotta catch up, because once you get, he showed me a clip from season 3, and like Aaron Paul becomes like one of the main characters from Breaking Bad, and he like pulls up his phone and there's like a murder checklist, and it looks like what you would think the cyberpunk future of the world is going to be, based off of like all of the bad things that we've seen come out of social media and like apps and stuff like that. I was like, is this still Westworld? How is this still Westworld? So that was enough drive for me to kind of try to keep watching. I think I got like 2 or 3 episodes into season 2 and I forgot about it, because, that's what you do. But maybe now that I've been trying to fill my time with less YouTube and more television, which, like, great trade-off, Mike. Maybe I'll come back to it. But anyways, total tangent. But so, okay, we 3 not going to work. Pumpkinhead's not going to work. A book that I had on my list, and this may surprise some folks, is Nimona. Because Nimona, for me, like, for those of you who haven't read it, we've talked about it a bunch on the show, I think. And I know there was some bad press with some of the creator Noelle Stevenson. So, like, I want to be fully transparent about that. Like, we understand that her and her staff that worked on the She-Ra show had some very bad takes and interpretations on some characters that they are currently working on. So I do not condone that work. But as a book, like, sometimes this kind of stuff doesn't matter for creators. So this is just like one of the books that I came up with. But Nimona as a book reads very quick, and it's whimsical, and it's got all these different things going for it. But I think as a film, it would need a lot of punching up as well. Like, it's about a shape-shifting thief who wants to become a supervillain, and so she becomes a supervillain's assistant, and then we meet the supervillain and his arch nemesis, and we find out about a whole different story, and there's a whole bit about who actually is this character Nimona. So it's an interesting movie premise, I guess, but I think, again, it would need a lot of punching up. Kate, are you telling me, based off of this thing, that they're filming that movie right now? Is this movie going to be bad? Damn it! As I was talking, Kate's editing in our notes doc, and she posted IMDb thing. God damn it! Well, you know what? I think this movie is going to be bad. I'm just calling it right here.
No, I agree with you that it's going to require a bunch of punching up. I think it belongs in the same camp as Pumpkinheads, where I think that it would make a very cute animated web short. And if they're going to make it into a longer movie, they're going to have to add some subplots.
Yeah, and I want to say that, like, Nimona would work as an Adult Swim TV series, right? An animated Adult Swim TV series where you're just getting, like, little 10-minute clips, right?
Yeah,
like an Adventure Time
adorable
episode. And I think that would super work. But as a feature-length film, I don't think this book has legs, So I don't, like, going through the checklist, like, is there a niche want for this? Probably. I think people like whimsical, fun little kind of like, I'm going to be a villain, but I'm not actually that bad type of storylines. Does the comics message work in today's film streaming world? Probably, especially if we go animated, right? I guess we've
animated.
been kind of assuming that we would go live action, but there's no restriction there. Animated feature films usually don't perform well among adults in the United States anyways, even though that's a fucking shame. But yeah, like, does this work? I mean, probably. I think I think it would work as a niche. But, like, I also don't think there's enough story there. So, like, getting into the next question, does the comics message work in today's film or in streaming world? Again, I think yes. Like, I think this comic has stuff going for it. But as far as the story being compressed, and is there enough story to make a feature length? Absolutely not. I don't think you could compress it without losing anything, like, because there's not enough story to compress in the first place. And if you did compress it, or even if you just use the base storyline, like, I don't think there's enough story to even fill 90 minutes. And again, if they did, it would feel disjointed. If they did, like, adapted it page to page or scene to scene, it would feel disjointed because it's like a series of snippets. It's not actually like a continuous story outside of the overarching story plot. So I don't know.
Have you seen the show Hilda? The Hilda adaptation on Netflix? I
have not. That's a show, though.
That's a show. That's another comic adaptation it's animated. And that's similar to what you're saying. Like, every episode is about 20 minutes, if that. And yeah, I mean, it just picks up the snippets of this girl's life. It's a kind of a day in the life comic, or show rather. It's a little supernatural, and the whole show builds into a full story. Like there's a full plot line if you take the show as a whole, but every single episode is a different. Yeah, it's a different story. So yeah, I think that it would work as an animated show.
Right, but as a feature film,
one.
I don't think so. Yeah, I don't know.
I feel like that is a lot of what I'm running into. Is like I've been able to think of some comics that I keep thinking like you can't compress the story into a 90-minute movie, but they've already made shows of them. So,
well,
yeah, so like Runaways and Vagrant Queen.
Right. I actually want to address that near the end of the episode. Like I want to get through maybe 2 or 3 more. And then I do want to talk about that because I think that there's something to be said about like serialized comics becoming serialized television. Kind of feels like natural step, and yet for some reason we see these movies getting made. So let's go into that. Let's put a pin in that for now. I do want to jump over to back to you, Kate. Do you have another option outside of this whole, does this make sense as a TV series? Like we can talk about that, but do you have another like comic that you think would be a bad movie?
Yeah, I've been reading The Girl from the Other Side. I think you've read a lot of that too. And I haven't read everything that's out yet. I think I'm about halfway through it, but it's a really cute it's a really cute comic series that revolves around this girl that's being kind of raised by this quote unquote outsider who thinks that if he touches her, she's going to get some kind of disease that turns her into more or less kind of like a monster. I think that he's referred to himself as a monster a few times. And as you like, the first 2 or 3 volumes is just their life together. And it's really cute. But as you progress later in the series, it kind of becomes this sort of exploration of the world, and it gets darker. It's like, why are these outsiders? Why do these outsiders look like this? Why aren't they allowed in the city? Why are the humans afraid of them? Is there something more to this girl than just being a human that's trapped outside that none of the humans will take in? Right. So I think that there's a lot of nuance to this that I think could get lost in a movie if it's not, reinterpreted in some more obvious way. And then I don't really know where it would fit in terms of a genre, because it focuses on this child, but it becomes such a dark story that I don't think that it could possibly be a kid's movie.
Sure. I actually disagree with you here, Kate.
Okay. Well, you've read more than I have, so.
Well, I've only read four-ish volumes. I think I started the 5th volume. That being said, a lot of this book is kind of like comicking for the sake of comics, which like isn't a bad thing, right? Like there are pages of just kind of like walking and like, nonverbal action and things that are kind of not, I don't want to say drawn out, but they are like long, for good reason. It's emotional beats. It's things that in comics take a long time, right? In terms of pages and panels and stuff like that. But in movies take seconds. My thought is that I think that like if we're going through the checklist, right? Like, is there a niche want for this? I think this kind of borders on the edge of it's definitely not for kids. The comic's not for kids, right? I think is there a niche want for this, and does the comics message work in today's film and streaming? I would say yes, in that it would be a film that would be kind of suspenseful, but has a wholesome message in a weird way.
Yeah.
I think it would be very strange. It would feel like Children of Men, right? Where in Children of Men, that movie's dark and it's scary, and like it has this message of hope despite all else, like despite the horrors of the world. And I think that's the same feeling I get from this comic. Like I think it would work. And like today, do we need that? Do we need a message of hope among all else in horrors around us? Absolutely, right? I think that like the story getting compressed would work. I think you could get rid of a lot of the, I don't want to say repetitiveness, but a lot of the like similar scenes where we kind of slowly learn things, turn them into, your movie's standard of rule of threes to try to figure these things out. Like introduce the idea of the outsider touching the little girl's skin, like in the first 10 minutes of the film, and then just leave this big question mark on it until the end. Now, of course, this kind of like takes the manga and then just like takes its however long it's ever going to be and compresses it down. But I don't think that would make a bad film. So like,
yeah, I guess
in my mind, I think there's a 2 hour and 10-minute long live action film here. And I think like, adding to the last question of, is there already something similar to this out there? Sort of. Like, I threw out Children of Men because that's the first movie that comes to mind. But the idea of like a suspense thriller that has a hopeful message is rare. But I think that when it's done properly, it's a great film. And, again, Children of Men is my go-to reference for this. So that's my argument for it. And, okay, I'm totally here to hear your disagreement with that if you think that I'm wrong. But that's just my first take on this.
No, that's yeah, now that you've kind of chopped it up a little bit like that, I can agree with that. That's really inspiring, actually. Now I want to see this movie really bad. Yeah, I think it could be, if they did it live action, I don't think it would be that hard technically, because there's not, I mean, for being a supernatural-ish book, it's really just the character designs, and they could almost do those without CGI if they wanted to, for the most part. So yeah, if you got a good makeup artist and found a good child actor for it, yeah, I think it could be a really good movie. I think that they would have to cut out most of at least the first 2 volumes, possibly the first 3 volumes, and that would just be like your opening 10 to 20 minute sequence would be the first couple volumes.
I mean, there is some exploration stuff with the outsider, with teacher, and the guy who the other outsider who's kind of like fucking chaos incarnate, and like the wolves that he has and all that. I mean, like, and again, if you slim that down, I mean, again, you'd need an Agabe to answer all the questions and have all the answers for the the producers and stuff like that, depending on what kind of ending or what story you wanted to tell, right? You could establish a world of lore and then only make the story about, how the little girl gets saved, right? Or you establish all the lore and then you actually reveal it all in the end. I mean, we love that here in the United States. At least our movies make it seem to think that we do. So it's just a matter of like what type of story you want to tell. But I think that this book could easily be compressed down and make a compelling movie, even just exploring one single facet of the story. So like that's my thought.
True. Yeah. So I think you'd have to cut out quite a bit.
Yeah, you'd cut out a bit, but I think you could still get a solid film without losing the energy of the manga.
You've convinced me.
Yeah, we did it. Renee, what about you? What's another pick of yours?
Oh, so many. It's so difficult. But I'm going to go. This is just the gut feeling that I have. Literally any manga being adapted for an American audience, I think, is just going to be bad. You know why? Because every time we have done a manga adaptation for an American audience, we have dropped the ball, and I just am not ready emotionally to handle that.
Like what?
Don't make me say it.
Well, okay, no, but like all of them are failures? Every single one? I think that's pretty broad of a statement.
Can you name one that was good?
Wasn't Big Hero 6 in a manga?
I believe that was an American comic.
No, I think that was a Western comic, yeah.
All right.
I think Alita Battle Angel did moderately well, actually.
Yeah, I like that one quite a bit, actually.
I didn't see it, but, I heard that it was good. It's on my list, definitely. But you know what? Death Note really hurt.
Yeah, Death Note hurts a lot.
Dragon Ball Evolution really hurt.
Oh, fuck, I forgot. Fuck, wait. Okay. Hold on, I think Renee's right, guys.
I don't have faith that we can do it. Mm-hmm. Because for some reason, we look at this well-written thing or this fun thing and we go, what if we changed everything about it? Because we just don't think that it would sell as a story. And then we give it to somebody who, one, just reads the summary of it and then goes, you know what? I have a great idea. Let's do nothing like it and change all the names. And that just doesn't seem like that would be a good formula for a movie. Call me crazy.
I mean,
call me bold. Call me late for dinner. I don't care. I just don't want it to happen anymore.
René, you're crazy. Okay. Do you have a specific comic you want to talk about, though?
You know what? Let's go with the giant. Let's go with Berserk.
Okay.
Berserk is a 30-year-old manga that has it's still in serialization, and it is a story that takes place in a medieval fantastical world, and it follows a sword for hire Guts, who then is brought into a mercenary band that's called the Band of the Hawk, and they follow a soldier named Griffith who wishes to one day lead his own nation. And then through a series of horrible, horrible events, things just become a nightmare. And it's a very wonderful story. It's got lots of emotion. It's got incredible amounts of depth. The art in the series is fantastic. The original anime from the 80s has been highly regarded as one of the best animes ever made. Even though they didn't have a big budget and the animation is kind of the stories, the directors did a really good job with it, and also it's got a fantastic soundtrack. And then they also made 3 animated movies that basically tell the first arc, and they're pretty good, but they're kind of like Cliff Note versions of the series. And again, it's only the first arc of the actual story, so you're missing a whole lot, and the series hasn't ended either. But so is there a niche want for it right now? Kind of, because a lot of people kind of have compared it to Game of Thrones, and the fact that, like, it breaks that mold that, knights were these courageous and, honorable people, but really they were, savages and did all these things for their ambitions and whatnot. And, there's also that kind of fantastical thing in there as well. Like, there's dragons in Game of Thrones, whereas there's a whole bunch of demons and monsters and things in Berserk. Also, when you meet trolls, you will never think of the word troll ever the same again. It's horrifying.
Okay.
And does the message still kind of work for today's film and streaming world? I think so. But here's where it gets tricky. Can that story be compressed without degrading the story? And the answer is no.
Okay,
I don't think
but
so.
also we also have to consider the idea of, like, could you compress a chunk of the story in order to deliver a solid film?
Here's the thing. So they made 3 animated films for the very first arc.
Mm-hmm.
And even if you tried to do a live action adaptation of that first animated film, you are still losing enormous chunks of the story.
Okay.
And the thing is, the reason that I think how they were able to do the movies is because people knew at least a little bit about the series in Japan, because it's a very big, it's a gigantic story. It's very big. And
interesting.
I would recommend the animated series or the animated movies. They are pretty good. Although the 3D animation takes a little bit to get used to in the first movie, it's done pretty well in the second too. I haven't watched the third one, but that's purely because the content is very, very disturbing.
Sure.
But to go back to that point of even condensing the first movie to make it a live action adaptation, I think would still be very difficult, and I think it would still be very, very hard to condense it because of the pacing and all the things that happen in the story and everything that is important for the characters, because the series is all about the characters and why they do the things that they do, as well as having action. And it's a lot. It's a lot. And I just don't think that a live action adaptation would not do the story justice.
Okay. I mean, I'll take your word for it. I haven't read it, but it's been on my forever list. And now that I've read most of One Piece, anything is possible.
Yeah, I would wait until things are less soul-crushingly depressing.
Okay.
It's a very dark series. It's incredibly dark. And actually, I also lied. I said that the movies cover the first arc. That is actually not true. They cover the second arc because there's about 30 or so chapters in the series that are like set in the modern day, and then you jump back like 10, 15 years in the series. So I accidentally lied there, but that first arc is actually super, super dark. So yeah, it's read it on a sunny day when you're in just a really bubbly mood, and then you'll be depressed for a month.
Great. Okay. Well, I have a couple more options that I was thinking about, but I don't want to, we can go back and forth all day. I guess the thing that I do want to talk about is, what we were saying before we put a pin in it, what is it that makes a good comic book movie adaptation for us, right? Maybe checking these boxes are one thing, at least to get them made, but also like what makes some of the options that I listed in our doc, work. Like I listed The Old Guard. I thought that was a good adaptation. I think Scott Pilgrim is a perfect adaptation of a long series compressed into a single film. Sin City, for what it is a good adaptation in that it is just fucking pages pulled out of the comic and put on a motion picture. I get that. Like Robert Rodriguez did a fantastic job, basically taking Frank Miller's comic as storyboards and then make it into a film. That's great. I Kill Giants, I think, is another good adaptation. And if you guys disagree with me, let me know. And two that Renee put on here, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Diamond is Unbreakable, a live action adaptation. I'm going to need you to explain that in a second. And then Renee, you also listed The Crow, to which I would like to have words. So JoJo's, what made that one work? I kind of explained the other one. I Kill Giants, I think, is a good compression of an 8-issue story into a film. Kate, you can probably speak to that a little bit, but explain the JoJo's Bizarre Adventure adaptation, because that's a big series to turn into a film.
It is, and I actually thought it was a very bold move when I found out that this movie was happening, because first of all, Diamond is Unbreakable is the title of the 4th part of the series. Mm-hmm. So there has already been like a ton of things that have happened in the series, but they were just kind of like, that's not important. This series is pretty self-contained. There's only a few things you need to know, and they're all explained very, very early. And it's like, even if you didn't read anything before or watch anything before that, it's pretty self-contained, and they explain everything pretty well, which I thought that's actually pretty genius. And they don't do this. This movie isn't the entire part either. They compressed about the first couple chapters of the series or the first couple episodes of the anime into the movie, and they took the fact that this is a ridiculous concept. It's a ridiculous series, hence the title Bizarre Adventure. It's really weird, but with that, there's a lot of fun to be had with it. And they decided we're just going to go with it. And I think it works actually really, really well. There is a little bit of silliness with the stand battles, but the team that made it really kind of cared about the series, I think. And I think that they did it's a very good adaptation, especially for the monster of a series that JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is. And this is kind of like it's like having your first little bit of sour candy, Okay. You're like, this is a crazy experience. I don't know if I want more of this. This is just a wild ride in a bite-sized form. But you know what? There's still a whole container left.
You say that there's going to be like a dozen more movies, or that you should just go manga?
I mean, you could go manga, or you could even go to the anime series. I think the anime series is really, really good. And also they have made part 5, which is all done. And they are going to make part 6, which is I'm really excited for Stone Ocean. And then eventually we'll get, the other parts. But I think that if you don't know anything about it and you just want to try Diamond is Unbreakable, if it gets you to watch the anime series, then great.
I think I want to try this.
If you love the series, you're gonna just want more JoJo's, just in general. So it does its job in that aspect.
Yotaro. You're supposed to say Dio there. But okay,
yeah, but
fine.
he's not in that part. It's
I
Josuke
know.
Higashikata, who is the man. He's got the dopest do around, and he's got a sweet stand.
I don't even know what that means. I'm
No.
excited to watch this
As
movie.
in do, as in he's got a great hairdo.
Okay.
And the stand is his psychic ghost thing. That is his power.
All right, you've already
named
lost
as,
me.
Yeah. Again, they explain it in the series,
Yeah, no, I got you, man. I got you. So interesting. Yeah, Kate, I don't know. What are your thoughts on some of the adaptations that we've listed here as good adaptations? What makes them work for you?
Basically, that they didn't have to add or remove large parts of the story.
Okay.
So like with Scott Pilgrim, you said that they took out a lot of like extras, a lot of redundancy, a lot of things that, yeah, you basically just add in to fill out a comic. Not that they aren't valuable things to know or read, but in a movie, you take out a lot of, or you miss a lot of like off-screen moments that are just things that emphasize stuff that we already know, or add a little bit more complexity to them. And in a movie, you just don't need that much bulking out of ideas, largely because of the time constraint. But yeah, I agree that the Scott Pilgrim was a really great adaptation. It jumped from one moment of action to another moment of action, with enough in between to create a story and to let us care about these characters. I Killed Giants was really great. That was really close to a one-to-one adaptation. I personally have things that I missed in the movie, just some of the nuance that was in the comic book, but the moment, like all of the individual moments were there, I think. And then the Old Guard, again, that's another one. They did add a subplot to the Old Guard that I think is more for the benefit of creating a second movie. And I haven't read the second volume yet, so I don't know if they were pulling things out of that volume into the first movie. But largely, for the most part, the Old Guard was a one-to-one adaptation, and it had all the moments that I loved from the book in it.
Yeah, same.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's probably more to say about this, probably more to go into. So we'd love to hear what you folks out there have to say. If you disagree with us or if you agree with us, one way or another. And, if you're a Patreon backer at the $10 tier, you can see our full show notes and you can know exactly what other movies were on our chopping block list. So since we didn't get to all of them, but I want to say, I guess this is a really interesting discussion. Maybe we'll revisit it in the future. Next time I have you and Renee on, Kate, we can figure this out some other time, or we could just have this discussion in DMs. So I guess let's wrap things up here really quick. You can follow us all on Twitter. You can follow Kate at Kate Elfier. You can follow Renee at Rodriguer29, and you can follow me at Mike Rappin. And I read comic books at IRCB Podcast on Twitter and Instagram.
The show and our mini subscriber-only episodes are powered by fans like you on Patreon. Join now at patreon.com/IRCB podcast. If you haven't already, please rate and review our show 5 stars on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you listen to podcasts.
Join us on Discord at ircbpodcast.com/Discord, and make sure to tell a friend or two about the show.
Infinity Shred is the best band in the universe. They do all of our music. Xander is a very cool guy, a great GM, and he's also a wonderful editor. He edits the show. I want to say thank you to Renee and Kate for being on this episode with me. Thank you to Xander, and thank you to everyone out there who listens to the show. Without you, the show would not be possible. And until next time, comics are good, and so are you.
Hey, Mike.
Yeah.
I was wondering if you ever, I don't know, for ever one episode, maybe it's a really campy episode, but you end the show like it's a PBS show where everybody is just pretend that there's a camera, everyone's smiling and waving, and everybody says together, "Comics are good, and so are you." Like Mr. Rogers style.
That would be wonderful if we could get at the end of every episode, we just do something like, "And until next time," and then we as a group say, Comics
are
good.
good, and so
are you. Like,
I fucked
feel
that
like
up
it would
so
take
bad.
I feel like we'd have to do a video stream to sync up.
Yeah. I mean, if we get the cadence down, eventually we could do it. I think that would be really funny.
Yeah. I
love
can't
it.
believe that we don't have a IRCB t-shirt that says comics are good, and so are you.
Well, you know what? I just need someone to design it. I don't want to just have a plain T-shirt. I'd like to have something that looks cool.
Yeah.
So maybe if someone out there wants to design one, I'll pay them, I guess. It's fucked up. I'm gonna hit stop about this before I start ranting.